We're polytheists. We're kind of tree huggers. They want to believe that there's some sort of demonization. They want to believe that, like, we believe in Satan. But, effectively, that means anybody who is not a Christian by some denomination is automatically could be determined the enemy. We're not the enemy. Hi, I'm Reverend Alicia Lyon Folberth, and I am the President and High Priestess of the Panthean Temple of Connecticut. We started it in 1995, so our temple is now turning 30 years old. We wanted to found something that was open to Wiccans and Pagans and have some real legal rights. So that was a big motivation in doing so, because nobody had tried to do anything like that here in Connecticut before.
For someone that really, like, if there's someone that's watching this that has never heard of the Panthean Temple or doesn't know what you guys stand for, like, could you sum it up in a few sentences?
We're polytheists. We're kind of tree huggers. Nature worship is a big part of what we do. My former priest was an animist. He wasn't Wiccan, he wasn't, some other flavor of pagan, but he still served as my priest anyway, because community is a big thing. And so we're very open, we're not telling anybody what flavor they have to be. It doesn't matter whether you're some variety of Wiccan or perhaps some other pagan tradition, you're still welcome with us. Because in reality, it all comes back to the fact that we're all kind of doing the same thing.
What, when someone joins the Pantheon Temple for the first time walking through the doors, what do you think they're looking for?
Everybody comes with their own ideas. When people are pagan, they usually are kind of heretics in the first place. So they did not fit. So in order to be able to practice collectively, you have to make yourself fit somehow. And I think that's sometimes where the conflict happens, because people come in with their own ideas. Maybe they've been practicing on their own for a while, maybe they've just been reading books, and they expect maybe us to be whatever they envisioned it would be. So, it's not that I'm going to tell anybody how they practice at home, because I'm not. But when you enter into a group, there's guidelines, there's a format, there's a way of doing things, because otherwise there's no point to it.
Yeah. Do you think there's, what would you say the biggest misconceptions people have about Wiccans or Pagans are?
It's TV. People always love the sensationalized stuff. So they want to believe whatever is sensationalized is real, and it's not. You've got also a lot of misinformation, because you've got this whole generation of people that just do social media and TikTok as a witch or a pagan or whatever, and that isn't helping, because they can't tell anybody what it is either. Mm-hmm. But I've been practicing for a very long time now, so this is like 41 years. I think I know what I'm doing at this point, and I think I know what things are. So, being able to explain this to lay people, effectively.
Lay people?
If you will, people who aren't familiar,
Gotcha.
Can sometimes be a big hurdle, because they want to believe that there's some sort of demonization. They want to believe that, like, we believe in Satan. I'm like, I'm sorry, Christians believe in Satan. It's not a part of what we do. They want to just kind of believe in things that they just hear. So, people like to also like to go into the horror story stuff. Now, let's face it, we all liked American Horror Story with Coven with Stevie Nicks. That was, like, cool. Mm. Was that really what we do? No. It's a TV show. Yeah. It was fun, though. It's been hard to dissuade people that we're not doing something that's evil. That we're people of the heart, we're not people of the book. So that makes it actually more difficult, because we have to be ethical in what we do. If people subscribe to the Wiccan Read, which is actually advice, part of it is harm none, do what ye will. And I wish more people would follow that philosophy in general of the golden rule. And a lot of people don't. They don't even consider that as maybe something that they should be doing. So we get these people, like at the local coffee shop, I walked in and there was this guy and he was telling this story and it pricked up my ears and he's like, they're burning goats. And I'm like, what in the world? And he was telling the guy across the counter, yeah, they're burning goats up there in the park. And I'm like, excuse me, are you talking about Osborndale? And he was like, yeah, they're burning goats. No. Nobody's burning any goats. In fact, most of us are vegetarian. He's like, well, wait a minute. How do you know all this? Because I'm the head witch. You're not even allowed to build fires in the park. Yeah. We don't even use the barbecue grill. So, there's no burning of goats up here. There's no Satanists. If there were Satanists up here that were, these supposedly mythological figures, that were doing these great rituals. No, it's not here. So realistically, people want to dramatize whatever it is that we're doing and read more into it than there really is.
Yeah.
They'd find out we're actually kind of boring. When we're kind of like these tree-hugging hippies, they realize that maybe it wasn't what they thought.
Yeah. When you tell someone that you're a witch or a Wiccan or a pagan, what do you think is the reaction you usually get? Or is there a lot of weird reactions to that, or do people well receive it usually?
There's weird reactions to that. I got fired for being a witch.
Really?
I was a senior graphic designer for a major corporation, and I got fired for being a witch.
Why?
Intolerance. And people want to think that maybe you're doing something bad. And because of that, people are very prejudiced. So, they want to believe I'm like some kind of person who's evil and burns goats in the woods or something. So, it's this horrible thing. I mean, some years have passed now since that all happened. But, it really hurt me because I really was experiencing some really mean things. Like there was one supervisor, not from our department, that I was eating lunch with, that we had a mutual friend with. It was just a little couple of us. And he started going off just in the middle of lunch. Was not triggered by anything. Those witches that were burned long ago, they deserve to die. And I was like, what? But you know who I am. He was one of the few people who knew who I was. And he's like, well, they were bad people and they deserve to die. And I'm like, well, actually, they were Christians. And you do realize that you're telling me that you might as well be telling people from the Holocaust that they deserve to die. That was genocide. It was genocide in a different way with religion. But they were predominantly going after women. And I was like, why in the world are you even saying this to me? And he just reiterated that they were bad people and they deserved to die. And it just dropped my jaw.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have that kind of a conversation at work.
No. Do you think a lot of people in the group kind of deal with similar situation?
We come across it in various ways, be it through family or somewhere with other people that we know. I came out of the broom closet when I was 30 after I formed the temple because, with my grandmother and grandfather and my aunts, because, I didn't want them finding out some other way. They were waiting kind of for like the other shoe to drop and they didn't know what it was. Yeah. And I had ended up inadvertently on the cover of Connecticut Post with my sunglasses on, but I had. And I was like, I better tell them.
What's the Connecticut? So, sorry, on front of the Connecticut Post supporting the pagan community, or?
No, it was a trial, and there was somebody that had come who said that they were a witch. And they said that they were being accused of sleeping with this a 15-year-old kid. And so some of us got involved. And they were having a problem because the media was so intense that they were forcing her into the street. She had no choice but to bring her child with her. She couldn't afford childcare. So, her child was almost forced out into the street with traffic, and we decided that was too much.
Yeah.
So we were walking her into court to make sure that nobody would get, directly into her face again and potentially push her into the street. And that was where I ended up on the cover of the Connecticut Post for the first time, but nobody knew who I was. I ended up in the Connecticut Post when we formed the temple by accident. And that was when I was living in Bridgeport. That was kind of scary because they published our home address, not realizing that it wasn't, public. We didn't have a P.O. box yet. It wasn't officially the church, it was our residence.
Yeah.
So we had threat letters. We had, phone calls because at that point, you still had the white pages and all of that. And they were leaving threatening
Really?
voicemails. It got to the point where we didn't pick up the phone anymore. And my boyfriend's car got vandalized. He had the windshield cracked and tires slashed on the car. So that was not a good time. People would go by and they'd be screaming at us, if we were outside.
What would those threats usually say?
They were saying that we were going to burn in hell, that they were going to get us, and we weren't, allowed to live. A witch was not allowed to live.
Really?
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. So it was hard. It was really hard for a while.
Is that still something you guys deal with as much?
In this environment with this administration, I'm afraid we're going to be dealing with it a lot again.
Can we talk a little bit about how do you or your community view magic or spell work? How is that part of what you do at all?
Privately, spell work. We do ritual. We're devotional. Our focus is the old gods. We use the wheel of the year, the seasonal cycles, the cycles of the moon. So that's what we're revolving around.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of pattern. It's very agricultural. Anybody that grew up with farming on some level as a way of life would resonate with this.
Gotcha. When you said privately spell work, would you be able to expand on that a little more?
People tend to do spell work on their own, not necessarily with a group. Somebody might, within a coven, they might decide, let's do spell work for this particular thing. As a psychic, I always find it amusing when people ask about the lottery numbers, and I'm like, I don't hear about too many psychics winning. But the witches seem to be winning the lottery tickets. There's something in that.
Really?
Yes. If you look it up on the internet, you'll come across people that said, yeah, we did this spell work together, or our coven did a special ritual to win, and we purchased our lottery tickets, and we all won, and you hear about it.
Yeah.
So.
Would you be able to touch on whether it's your own personal experience or something you've seen, the most powerful result of spell work that you've witnessed? Is there anything that comes to mind for that?
It's not really powerful, I should say. I'd say that we change things subtly. It's not like it's something that's big and showy. But when you realize that maybe you helped somebody heal, that they put themselves on a better path, when you realize that you've made some real changes for the better, you feel good about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big and showy. In fact, we don't even talk about our magic once we've done it, generally speaking. Yeah. So.
Maybe could we go back? You started to touch on the traditions or the events or the rituals that you guys hold. Could you explain what those are and just walk through them a little bit?
Sure. What we do is we offer public Sabbats, which are effectively more solar holidays. We've got this 8-spoked wheel, but it's actually a 4 and 4. We've got the Celtic fire festivals, which are very agricultural. And then you have the solstices and the equinoxes, which are definitely, referring to the sun's alignment at that particular time. So the wheel of the year begins with Samhain, which most people would know as Halloween.
Gotcha.
That's the old Celtic New Year, which has changed dates over time. But that begins the dark half of the year for the Celts. And then they have a light half of the year when you hit the opposite side with the other spoke. So the next one would be Yule. And that one is probably more well known as a Norse or Germanic holiday. It's Christmas. When we celebrate the Sabbats, the wheel, of course, keeps turning. We then go to Imbolc, which, of course, is also very agricultural. The sheep begin to lactate. They drop their lambs. It's the first stirrings of spring. That's when everything starts. People would call it Candlemas over in Europe. We don't think about these things because, Europeans, I think, are more connected with the idea of their old folklore and their old stories than we are here in North America. I think the Puritans did us quite the disservice and removed us from a lot of the spiritual things. So from that we go to Ostara, and that is the vernal equinox. Effectively, we know that Easter has a relationship with Ostara. There was a monk, the Venerable Bede, that recorded some of the old Anglo-Saxon holidays, and that's actually where Easter gets its name from. It's not that it gets its name from anything having to do with anything Christian. It's a pagan name. We have Beltane that follows Ostara, which is May Day. I think a lot of people might be familiar with it with the maypole and the maypole dance and such. It's a big holiday, and it's very much a fertility holiday.
Yeah.
My grandmother told me that she used to dance the maypole with the other kids in Central Park when she was a little girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this kind of celebration has a continuance. And then you have, midsummer, which is the summer solstice, and the sun is at its peak, and we celebrate that. And then we have Lunasa, which follows it. Lunasa is the first grain harvest. It is named for the god Lu, and his foster mother, Talchu, died clearing all the fields of Ireland for agriculture, according to lore. So it's effectively funeral games were held in her honor. But we're celebrating, John Barleycorn, the first grains of the harvest, the first bread. You have Mabon, which is the autumn equinox, which goes by a bunch of different names. It could be Muckle Supper, it could be Churn Supper, Harvest Home. They were still celebrating that holiday up to the 1700s.
So is there any traditions you guys have that aren't in some way rooted to a Christian or holiday?
Well, they aren't really rooted to Christian holidays. It's Christian holidays rooted to us.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fair point, yeah.
Everything old is new again.
I saw with the maypole dance, it looked like a lot of people were in various costumes, different, like some people had masks on, some people didn't. Where did that come from?
Oh, for Samhain and, which it's Halloween, and for Beltane, which, you might know as May Day, these are two boundaries between the worlds, between the light and dark half of the year. So, at Samhain, you're entering into the dark half of the year, and at Beltane, you're entering into the light half of the year. And those in-between times are seen to be spirit times, whether it's spirit, the dead, the fae, the fairies, suddenly the veil is thin and our worlds interlap. And you put on a mask so that they can't recognize who you are.
Okay.
So you can pass through invisibly. effectively being immortal.
Wow. Are there any rituals specific to the Connecticut temple that you've started that you wouldn't find elsewhere?
You know, I don't really think that we're that unique. We don't tell people what deities they're supposed to honor, you know.
Gotcha.
There's nothing along those lines.
So everyone has the choice to honor their own deity.
Yes, but
Okay.
we do encourage them to get to know their deities better if you want to be able to work with them, because we do invocation. And, you know, it's different than just calling deity into the place where you're worshiping, into that ritual circle. It might mean that you're fully channeling them in yourself. And a lot of old cultural religions do this. That's not something that everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
And you need to have that relationship with deity to be able to do it. You don't call on these things willy-nilly.
Mhm.
You call very respectfully and for a purpose.
Do you have for the temple in Connecticut, is there a vision you have for the future, like goals you hope to achieve in the next 5, even 10 years with it?
Well, you have to remember I'm a lifer here. I started the temple when I was 30, so I'm 60. I've got, I figure, another 10, 15 years left that I can really get everything going to set up the temple to exist without me. And that includes land. So that's what I'm working on now, you know, to make sure that I am setting up everything so that it will be able to fully exist without me.
Yeah.
I'm on a time limit.
Just land or a building as well?
People, once you have land, then you can think about what you want to do with that. I've joked, and it might be true, that, you know, our very first building might be a barn, because you can build a barn anywhere pretty much in the state of Connecticut. They can't tell you no. So, you know, it doesn't really matter to us. It doesn't have to be some extravagant building. It could be a roundhouse or something, you know, anything to start. It could be a big gazebo. Just so that we had our own space, because it's a problem. You know, I worry about sometimes, it's not so much our own people, but people from the outside want to come up and stir trouble. We had that happen a couple of times for our Beltane, that somebody came in the middle of the night and went through the gate.
Wow.
And drove around and did some wheelies and was destroying the land while they do it, then went on out. And they did that on purpose because they knew we were there. You know, that's not okay.
No.
No, that's very aggressive.
Just like you mentioned before, dealing with threats, like
Yes.
still a constant thing.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not too happy with the way things are going, especially with what was just released about anti-terrorism. It was a part of the anti-terrorism, you know, executive order was anti-Christian thought. We're not anti-Christian, but, you know, effectively that means anybody who is not a Christian by some denomination is automatically could be determined the enemy. We're not the enemy.
So do you feel like with the administration then, like almost they're trying to, in a way, shut down what you guys are doing?
I think that they're trying to shut down a lot of us. You know, the Dominionist movement, I started talking about this years ago, that they were effectively declaring a holy war, and that they had gotten a hold of the Republican Party, and they were working through them. I remember when Patrick Buchanan got on stage at the Republican National Convention in the early 90s, and he declared a holy war on stage. And my boyfriend and I, we just looked at each other like, oh my God, you know, what is that? And I'm not being funny about, oh my God, but, you know, we have a God too. You know, just the idea that they would do that. I found out about the Dominionist movement after that, and they want to really turn it into an American Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
That's where they really want to go with it. And
So
they
the
don't
Dominionist
care.
movement has been around for a while.
It has been around for a long while. and it became the Heritage Foundation.
Oh,
If anybody's paying attention,
interesting.
those people are the ones that got involved with all of that. And now they're publishing books. Like there was this fellow, he published a book called Pagan Threat.
Hmm.
And he seems to see us as a threat.
Why?
Because people are turning away from Christianity. And considering that the evangelicals aren't even adhering to their own Bibles, they're preaching some sort of religion that is not in the Bible. It is not Bible-based, not for real. And it involves hate. And it involves destroying others that they feel are threats. It's really dangerous. This Christian nationalist movement is very fascist.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay.
Would you be able to touch on, if maybe, and maybe you already have, but through your time running the Panthean Temple here in Connecticut, what has been your most meaningful experience?
When the gods joined us,
And what does that mean?
when you knew that they were there.
Okay.
Those strange times when we all aligned and we made some real magic happen, or we were chanting, and you realized that the chant was reverberating, it was pulsing. You could feel it pulsing, you know, from the center of the circle where the energy was being raised. When you start to feel those things, you start to experience those things, nobody can take that away from you. That happens on such an intimate level.
Yeah.
I suppose some Christians have something similar that happens when they feel that they have, you know, the power of the Spirit or what have you. But for us, it's very deliberate. We don't see ourselves as being divorced from our divinity. We don't need necessarily an intermediary. I am simply a facilitator. You know, I'm not acting as the grand high poobah, you know, that everybody has to go through. You know, we can all connect with deity for ourselves.
Yeah. What could you? Is there any way to conceptualize what you feel in that moment when you say, "The gods joined us"? Or, sorry, not in quotes, but that's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, when they've joined us in circle, and it was palpable. You could feel their presence.
Huh.
You know, when we were all looking at each other afterwards, saying, "Yeah, that really happened."
Is it a tingling? Is it a sensation you can feel, or?
Yeah, you could say it was sensation. You could say it was emotional. You could say it was something that was on your sixth sense.
Yeah.
But that it was there. When you start using your will to influence things, and you realize that you might have some ability to connect in a more powerful way, it really changes your whole worldview and what you're working with. We don't give up our power, we reclaim it.